everyone. My name is Yulia Moiseeva and I'm a registered migration agent. I'm living and working in Australia, Gold Coast, Queensland, and today we will be talking about skilled visas. So I'm just want to cover the topic briefly first, and then we will be able to either answer your questions or I'll give you some scenarios what's going on right very now. So there are a couple of options for skilled visa, and the most desirable option is subclass 189, so independent skilled visa based on point test, where the applicant can come to Australia and live anywhere and doesn't have any commitment to any location. So that visa been most preferred, most desired one among a lot of candidates, but current statistics shows, unfortunately, that it's not a lot of options in regards to places for this visa. And another thing to watch out is that this particular visa has 4 rounds a year, so 8 rounds over the duration of your expression of interest, and it puts everything in a position whether you will be able to secure the application and invitation or not, because the system is designed the following way to allow department to control who they want to invite and at what stage, what sort of points can be the absolute minimum. Therefore, you basically doesn't have any opportunity to control this process, and it will depend on the preferences from the government at the time. Therefore, relying only for this invitation may be a very risky scenario, because you can potentially just sit there and waiting for 2 years doing absolutely nothing and miss other opportunities. So for those whose occupation is on the list, and if you secure enough points, enough, I'm talking not absolute minimum 65, so it's going to be 80 maybe or more, it's a good idea to put the application expression of interest in and wait to see whether you will be lucky. Because the amount of points are regulated by the government, and it's changing over every round based on the occupation, based on how many people applied for the same occupation and how many people got how many points. So you cannot control what's going on, and even if you will be getting the statistical information from department, it's going to be out of date. The reason for that is once you get the statistics, the other applicants will be putting the applications in, and you still will not be able to figure out what's going on inside the system. So 189 visa, regardless where you are, onshore, offshore, is still a good option, but the applications are rarely successul. That's why I would strongly recommend people who would like to consider skilled visas to look at other options. So another 2 pretty much workable options is 190 visa, so permanent residency visa, where the applicant will be committing to live in the particular state where they've got sponsorship for at least 2 years. So this visa will not have any condition on the visa that will strongly lock you within the state. But please consider your application with the state, because at the time where you lodge the application with the state, you will be signing the specific documents and declaration confirming your intention to go and live there for another 2 years. There are applicants who are thinking, okay, it's just a moral commitment and I will not need to do that. Just be careful with that, because if you don't go and live in the state where you're committing to live, and the state will be aware about that you left, the state will have an opportunity to basically send the request to Department of Home Affairs to start investigation, and your even PR visa can be potentially cancelled. So choose your location wisely. In regards to processing of 190, what's going to be happening absolutely now? A lot of candidates have priorities because they are onshore in Australia, and a lot of states are busy processing onshore applications. That's why we have not much variety of options for offshore. So let's start with people who are currently offshore. In regards to 190 visa, there is a limited number of occupations you can consider for South Australia, Adelaide. Mainly these positions can be in trade occupations. For 190, another options in regards to location will be ACT Canberra. In this state, if you are aiming to get 190, you will have to secure a job offer, and obviously you have to have your occupation in the list. So that puts you in a pretty much hard position because you're offshore in regards to searching and securing employment. Because ACT, for those who know, this particular state is administrative state. So there are a lot of government authorities and government organizations there. And I believe it can be absolutely hard to secure the job offer, especially within the government sector. So you will be left with private sector, and I believe it also can be hard to secure the employment, especially when you're offshore. But it's a good call and good try. So if you do that, and if your occupation is on the list, there is an opportunity to potentially get 190. Another state that's offering 190 opportunity from offshore in the limited occupations now is New South Wales, Sydney. So in this particular state, the applicants are required to be very competitive in regards to points. So the more points you've got, the potential more chances you will have to get invitation. So all these three states are pretty much locked in a system where you put your application in and then waiting for the state to consider your application. And if and when they will be ready to invite you, you'll get an invite. So that's not direct application. So first you expressing your interest, and then basically you need to wait and see where the state will gonna invite you. So again, you are not in control of the situation, and it may take time, obviously. Pretty much these three locations are currently available for offshore applicants. In terms of onshore applicants, so for people who are currently in Australia, obviously there are more options in regards to state sponsorship. First of all, depending where you are and what sort of visa you are on, there are limitations or options for the state sponsorship. Main criteria for the state is to have applicants on the visa with full work rights, and obviously with applicants who can show that they're working in the nominated occupation for a certain period of time. Every state has their own criteria, so I will not be able to go state by state and give you absolutely every single criteria, but let's just review what's going on now. For our state, for example, Queensland is offering 190 visa for those who've been working in the occupation continuously for 6 months and have at least 80 points and IELTS 7 in each band. So that's pretty much the standard, absolute minimum. The beauty of our state is that Queensland is using the full list of occupations, meaning if you have a variety of occupations where no other states can offer, you can potentially look at Queensland. The other states, South Australia, Northern Territory, are looking at, again, your employment. And depending on the pathway you're in, it can be 3, 6, or even 12 months of employment before you will be able to even secure your application. In terms of Tasmania, they may allow you to work in any occupation as long as you will be able to provide them with your career pathway and information how you're gonna basically achieve your nominated occupation in the current circumstances. So there is option to work in any other occupation, not in your nominated one. The same pretty much may happen in ACT, so you can secure employment, and it's not necessarily has to be in nominated occupation as long as you're working with certain hours and a certain salary. In terms of New South Wales, they are looking at also and giving favors to applicants who are working in the nominated occupation, because all this information you're declaring in your expression of interest. So don't forget it's on linked, and that's how state is going to be able to have a look what's going on and pick up candidates. So basically, the more you work in state, the better are your chances. Plus, obviously, you have to be competitive with your points. In regards to Victoria State, for those who are onshore, it's a bit of a problem and struggle now, I believe, because the state is focusing only in candidates from STEM sector, so science, technology, engineering, math, and medical, basically limiting that scope of industries and not limiting your occupation. So as long as you can prove that you are linked to this variety of sectors, you have a potential to get state sponsorship. For Victoria State, minimum 65 points, minimum competent English, which is very good, but you have to be working within these sectors. WA Perth just recently announced that they exhausted their quota, so don't forget that we're heading towards the end of financial year, meaning if you will not be able to get any invites now, you may possibly wait for 1st of July when the quotas will be released for new financial year, and you may have more opportunities, more luck. If you are sitting in one state and would like to potentially have an opportunity to apply for another state, that will not be much of the choices to start with, and it's not going to be much of the opportunities for 190 directly. So one of the interesting states, and the process can be initiated by the state government, is 190 for ACT, again Canberra, where basically if your skill set is much required, and I believe you may have an employment there, then the state can basically consider your application regardless where you are. Any other states I prefer to get their own candidates local who are working, and if you're going to be changing states or moving interstate for possible migration outcome, my advice to you would be to first check the requirements for interstate candidates in the state where you're going to be moving, because it's sometimes harder to establish yourself in a new state. And for example, a lot of people thinking that Tasmania is pretty easy, but in the absence of job opportunities, it's going to be a dead end potentially. So you need to first understand whether it is possible and doable to find job, especially in your nominated occupation. And I believe if you are sitting in Australia, you can even research and apply for jobs while you're in Australia, and even basically living in other state. And then you will be able to see if you will be interviewed and maybe invited to get a job offer, and then make your judgment call. So do not just move blindly without searching and researching for job in the new location, because it may be hard and your visa will be expiring, so you may find yourself in a very stressful situation. So let me answer a couple of questions we've got in the chat, and then we're going to move to 491 visa. So do you know about 482 visa short-term, which one government announced about PR pathway? Yes, at this moment of time, it was just announcement. And for the latest information, we've got that the government is planning to implement something approximately in July 2022. So the advice was from the government, if people cannot obviously wait and the visa is expiring, you can potentially look at COVID visa to extend your stay and then wait and see how the department and government will be releasing the legislation. So what sort of requirement is going to be for the transition from short-term to basically permanent residency. So there is no news, no solid news yet. So we're still waiting for this to be explained by the government. Another question, do you know about 482 visa? Can I apply for PR without sponsorship from work? How it was announced? So if we're talking about transition from 482 visa, depending on occupation, if you're happy to release what's your occupation, I can obviously give you some preliminary information in the chat now. Normal pathway, if your occupation is in medium to long-term list now, you can have an opportunity to transit to permanent residency with sponsorship of your employment after 3 years of working for the company. Alternatively, if you have more years of work experience and skill assessment and your occupation is in the list for 186 direct entry, you can potentially make your transition early. If you are sitting on 482 visa now, again, depending on your occupation, whether you can get skill assessment and what is your location, you can potentially look at 190 visa. And for this transition, you don't have to use your employment or your sponsorship. Majority of state will be asking you to provide certain evidence of your current employment. And then you can potentially secure 190 state sponsorship and then later on visa. In this case, you will only need to inform your employer about that you transited only when you basically get 190, because then your commitment for 482 visa will cease and you don't have to work for the same employer. So in this particular scenario, you can see what sort of occupation is there and whether you can fit into 190 criteria or 186. If you're talking about transiting from 482 to 186 without sponsorship from work, that is not possible because that pathway was created to that particular reason. So you're coming in on 482, you are working for a certain period of time, and then you have an opportunity to transition. But in this sort of scenario, it's up to your company to decide whether they would like to support you on transition. And a lot of companies are basically willing to do so, or it's on their discretion. They may say no, and they have all the rights to do so because it's their own personal decision. So you cannot force this process. And if your employment is ceasing and the new position is not offered, so basically you will not be able to make a transition. Hi Bernadette, so is hairdresser on the 190 list for Queensland? So at this moment of time, it's still open for application, but we were following up our other clients who are in the pipeline, and we got a response from Queensland that basically they're overloaded with applications. So they're looking at first assessed process. They cannot give anyone a priority. You need to look at list of the Department of Home Affairs, because for Queensland they are using the full list of occupations. So if hairdresser is on the list for 190 and you securing IELTS 7 or any other equivalent of English test with proficient level, and basically you're securing 80 points or more, then you will be able to consider 190. So let's now discuss the other opportunity for another skilled visa, 491. So at this moment of time, that's a lot of opportunities for offshore and onshore candidates. And I would like just to make a distinguished point first, what sort of visa is that? So for those who are watching, make the judgment call whether you like this type of pathway. So 491 visa, it's also point test visa, where you will have a strong legal commitment to lock yourself into a region where you will be obtaining sponsorship. So that's a big distinguished point between 190 and 491. So 190, again, no condition on the visa, but your legal moral obligation and obviously commitment between you and state when you sign the declaration. 491 visa has a certain criteria and certain condition on the visa that will absolutely lock you into the regional area where you get your sponsorship. And for those of you who are watching me from offshore, you just need to make sure you research those areas before you make your decision to apply there. Because I strongly suggest to have a look at these areas from the point of further living expenses, employment opportunities, schooling for children, etc. Reason for that is 491 visa, it's temporary visa for up to 5 years, allowing you to come to Australia and live for the first 3 years in that particular area where you got your sponsorship. So you cannot come in Australia and say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't like it here, can I move? So that's not going to be happening, because that's the whole idea of the program. So you need to choose wisely what regionals area may fit your needs. Then basically, in order to make a transition from 491 to 190 permanent residency, you will be needing to live in the regional area for 3 years and work in regional area for at least 3 years with an income from 53,900 every financial year out of 3. So you can potentially combine these 3 years, so it not necessarily need to be one every consequent year. So you may be 1 year of working, 1 year of rest, another 2 years of working, combining 3 within the duration of your visa. But you need to be careful what sort of regional areas you will be aiming to go and whether it's going to be work there. Interestingly enough, once you get 491 visa, you're not locked to work in your occupation. So you can switch to any other job, or you can switch primary applicant who's got 491 visa, and then secondary applicant can work towards getting permanent residency. So if you're coming as a couple, again, it can be switched, but only one person out of 2 in the couple have to satisfy the criteria of income. So both will have to live together. So another good bright side for this 491 visa is that you will have Medicare for all the family members, and you'll have free government schooling as well. So I would consider that as a bonus. Let's then discuss what's going on in regards to opportunities from offshore for these particular 491 visas. So at this moment of time, we have several states that are finally opened for offshore applicants. Let's go state by state. So 491 for Tasmania is open with their own list of occupations. There are obviously certain requirements for English language, certain requirements for work experience, but another thing I would stress out that it would be beneficial if you find a job and obviously have a job offer when you're applying for the state, because state does not have this criteria, but in one of the webinars they told us and public general that they're going to be favoring candidates who got the job offer. So again, it's going to be hard to potentially secure a job offer in Tasmania in this occupation that they are favoring. So, but have a look. And plus, obviously, it's an interesting location, so it may not suit everyone. I would say one of the interesting location where you can technically apply from offshore without the need to get a job offer is South Australia, currently Adelaide. So in regards to South Australia, state they open an additional list of occupation, and they are offering places for highly skilled professionals with 5 or 8 years of experience. The English requirement is pretty high as well, so the lower positions or trade occupations can have competent English, but in terms of professionals and managerial occupations, the requirements are quite high, 7.5 IELTS or more. In regards to varieties of occupations, I would suggest to have a look, because it's a lot of variety of options for occupations that you will never even see in any other states. For me, for example, it was a surprise to see photographers there or dancers there. So a lot of interesting occupation which can be used even from offshore. Another potential for 491 visa from offshore is currently possible for regional New South Wales. They have a variety of occupations as well, and a variety of sub-regionals. So you need to really have a look whether it's going to be any livable condition there for your specific needs and your profile, your skills. And basically, if that area is for you, so you can apply from offshore now. And again, you have to be competitive in terms of points, but that's not much of big criteria there. And another state which is currently offering offshore possibilities for offshore or applicants for 491 visa, that again ACT Canberra. So there are a list of positions, and pretty much for 491 visa, you will have to provide detailed job market research in terms of showing to the state how you're going to be securing your position once you are in the country. So they basically are requiring you to do all this preliminary work in terms of you prepping for your future employment, and showing them that you made your research good enough in order to convince them that you will have this employment in the future. So any other states at this moment of time are not open for offshore applicants. So please bear in mind that the Queensland promised us to open in December, but at this moment of time they are overloaded still with onshore applications. That's why they decided that it's unlikely they're going to be opening for offshore applicants until the end of financial year. So that's pretty much it. In terms of going and applying for 491 while you are onshore, again, it depends on the state where you currently locating. It depends on your visa. Currently, what do you have? What sort of visa? Full work rights or part-time work rights? But the states, again, overall prefer candidates who are working in the nominated occupations. So I would suggest to really secure, if you are, for example, a student currently thinking what sort of options you may have, it's definitely on the agenda and on the plate for people who are starting to secure relevant position as quickly as you can. So in order to make a smooth transition after your study to skilled visa. So overall, guys, as I said, we have some options for offshore applicants, but English requirements become a bit higher. So if you are at the beginning of this process, my advice is to obviously look at the criteria, look at their English requirement first, and start with that first, because the situation with states may change over time, and there is no need to start skill assessment, especially if you don't have English. For those who are onshore, again, you need to do a good research what's happening in your location first, what sort of option you may have, how long is your current visa is valid for, in order to make a judgment call whether it will be enough time for you to wait for state sponsorship, or you need to consider some other options, some other potential states. But don't go into state without researching and securing employment first, because it's going to be really stressful and high risks involved. overall, I understand that it's a tough situation in the world at this moment of time, but the options are slowly opening, and we hope to see more opportunities for, especially for offshore candidates, at the beginning of next financial year, which is going to be in July. So thank you guys for watching me today. I appreciate your questions during my live, and I'll see you next time in my next session. Have a great day.